Hello, and welcome to The Nature Connection Science, Wildlife, and Environment Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Nature Connection here on Big Blend Radio. Today's episode takes us to Yuma, Arizona, and we're going to hear all about the nature, areas, birding, gardens, cultural history, all amazing experiences offered through the annual Yuma Bird Nature and History Festival. It happens every January, and it's put together by Nancy Meister. She is the president of the Yuma Audubon Society, and also Yvonne, who is the owner of the Coronado Motor Hotel. And I encourage you to go to the website. It is an awesome event. Nancy, we've done the event, and we know Yuma pretty well since it's the Coronado's our hotel headquarters when we go in the area, and it's just beautiful with the wetlands, the Colorado River. So definitely check out the website. It's Yuma Bird Nature History Festival.com, and it's coming up for 2021, the weekend of January 15th. So we've got three special guests. We've got Diva Linda Kissam, the food, wine, shopping diva, is here. Linda's written an article about her recent experience at the festival in 2020. And the article, you'll be able to read it in the spring and summer issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, or you just go right over to blendradioandtv.com and you can check it out now. So welcome back, Diva Linda. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Everything is budding now and blooming, and the birds are everywhere, and I can actually now decide which bird is who and who is which bird. That's probably the worst English sentence put together ever, but you know, once I went to this bird festival, now I understand who the birds are and what they're doing and why they're doing it. So it was a great thing.
And so that helps you, because I know you just moved from Southern California to Arizona, and then of course, in summer she's off on her boat, the Diva ship.
Yep. Her Diva ship.
Yeah. So, but this when you went on this festival, I know you went to the gardens, you went bird watching, and we've got another couple of guests we're going to introduce in a second here. But did this help you kind of get familiar with Arizona?
Yes, it did. You know, living 6 months in one place and 6 months in another, about the time you begin to understand where you're living, and this is a new area for me, although I've moved 20 times in my married life. It's really great now to understand from going to the gardens what actually is in my yard and what could be in my yard. And then so I live on a bunch of water, I live on a lake, and so we have lots and lots of wildlife that comes in and it comes on our backyard, flies around the water, flies in the water, out of the water. So and we have our own white egret too, which is unbelievably wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah. So he or she comes every so often to get the fish in the lake, and it's so it's, you know what? It's just like it all came together. I mean, I understand the plants better. I understand the wildlife better. So this is a great festival to go to. I mean, who would think that I would ever go bird watching? But now I'm sort of a fan of it, and I think everybody should do it. And that's why I wanted to do this article and this particular show in the way that we're doing it.
Awesome.
Oh, who would think the Diva would get her own bird? Her own egret.
Who knew?
Well, the Diva, I know that she's going to get bird jewelry just now. Her shoes are going to be sparkled in shapes of birds, So I see what's going to happen.
Funny.
It's true. I know it.
As you're saying that, I was watching a home and garden show last night, and they did a ceiling in birds. And I thought, you know what? That might be really interesting. See? Oh my God, that's funny.
Oh,
I think it'd be a good idea.
Well,
Cool.
I want to bring our next guest on, Yvonne. Everyone, you've heard her on Big Blend Radio in the past as well. She is the owner of the Coronado Motor Hotel, the Yuma Landing Bar and Grill, which is on the same property, as well as the Casa de Coronado Museum. You've got to check that out. A really cool museum on the property that shows the history of Yuma, the history of hoteling, the history of tourism, a history of aviation, especially. And this is part of the reason she co-founded this Yuma Bird Nature and History Festival. It's not only about the birds, it's also about aviation history. And the Yuma Landing Bar and Grill is actually the site where the very first airplane touched down in the state of Arizona. So go to her website. It's go to coronadomotorhotel.com. So how are you doing, Yvonne?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, it's
Cool.
good to have you back now. Is it all
Yeah.
quiet now that we've, moved on to our next destination? Is Yuma quiet now?
Well, it's quiet. They have the Midnight Oasis this weekend, so pretty soon we're going to see a lot of cars and hear a lot of
cool.
rumbling.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You know we love those cars. Yuma has the best car culture ever.
Oh, it's a wonderful event for people to come to Yuma to see the Midnight Oasis.
Awesome.
You guys got to get Snoop to come down. He's got a nice pimp mobile.
Nancy. He does.
He does. It's purple, and he makes it go up and down, and it's very cool.
Yvonne, I wanted to touch on this because you also have a nonprofit connected with your museum and the festival, but this is something that you get a lot of birders that come to the hotel over the years. I know it's in over 400 species, I think. We've got Daniel Steward joining us here too, and he's a biologist, so he can really get into the nitty gritty on that. But you've seen that over the years, that you get a lot of nature enthusiasts coming out.
Yes, what it is for years we had a bird festival here in Yuma, and it was a really a growing event, and I was excited to see it every year. And then overnight it stopped, and it's been 5 years, it was 5 years, and I got together with Nancy with the Audubon Association and myself, and my nonprofit is the Yuma Historical Society Museum of Aviation and Tourism. And I told her, I said, I think our two nonprofits should work together and we'll put on a bird festival. And so anyway, we worked hard at it last year, and last year was our first one. And then of course we had one here in January, which made our second one. And I'm hoping our third one is much better, because it took time, after 5 years and no bird festival in Yuma, to get it back in shape. It's been tough, but we'll make it. We've been growing as we go.
I love it because I think you have these different, activities. It's a lot of times when you think of festival, it's like, oh, it's like another street fair. But this is not what the Yuma Bird Nature History Festival is like. You actually go out on all these activities, like garden tours and going bird watching and hiking and canoeing and, all these different activities. So you get to choose which one. And there's a lot of activities that you and Nancy put together. And so it's a big deal, a lot of work that goes into it, and definitely a unique experience. I'm going to bring our next guest is Daniel Steward, and he is a biologist. He's a wildlife biologist for the U.S. Army Yuma Proving Ground, and he also lives in Yuma. So welcome to the show, Daniel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, this is awesome. So it is over 400 birds, right? That's in the area.
Anytime I start talking about numbers, I kind of have to make them up as I go. so as soon as I say a number, I know I'm going to be wrong. And as soon as we say there's 400, there's going to be 401 pop up. So,
okay.
But it's an incredible diversity. And we're part of the Colorado subsection of the Sonoran Desert here. And the Sonoran Desert is our most diverse of all of our deserts in the United States. And the thing that makes Yuma a real jewel in the desert is we have this really awesome feature running right through our community, the Colorado River. And that's a very unique thing for this desert ecosystem, is having this Colorado River flyway. We've got birding opportunities here that are just astounding. And it's not just for birds. We also have a lot of unique desert wildlife in the area as well, with everything from our desert bighorn sheep, Sonoran pronghorn, and of course our mule deer and all the other wonderful wildlife that we have out here in this area to enjoy.
And bats, because there was bat viewing too at the festival. I know
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
And beaver, that's the one thing, we always, seeing them in the wetlands, in the west and the east wetlands, just steps from downtown Yuma. I couldn't believe it that they're back and they seem to be thriving, which is really nice.
And one of the most unique recreation opportunities I ever had was kayaking amongst the beavers at Taylor Lake at Picacho State Park. I mean, just all these areas, where you can just be right there with wildlife. This is really awesome.
That's cool. I want to go.
I know. So did Diva Linda behave herself with all the birds? I want to know how she did out there bird watching because you went up to Senator's Wash as part of the festival.
So the day of our tour, it's like the weather got perfectly dialed in exactly for our tour. We got out there and the sun was just perfect. There was no wind. You couldn't imagine better conditions for bird watching. And the particular area where we were birding at, it was pretty long distances, so we had to look through spotting scopes and binoculars and stuff to really be able to see anything. But gosh,
it was a wonderful tour for a novice. Anybody listening?
And we're with waterfowl and some of the things we're able to get to watch along those lakes and stuff is really nice to be able to get spotting scopes zoomed in on the individual birds, especially when we have our novices out there. It's always good to be able to point out the white spot on the head on the Eurasian on the widgeons, or on specific characteristics we use to identify birds. So it's really nice when you got a bird sitting out in the middle of the lake that's not going anywhere that you can zoom in on.
That's cool. Yeah.
So Diva Linda, did you get to see terns? Do you remember any of the specific species that you saw?
Oh, I got to see all sorts of stuff. Coons, is that right? It probably has a longer name, but raccoon, I think, and egrets a lot. Oh God, I love that bird. And I think at Senator's Wash there were a ton of them. I mean, there were just hundreds of them. It was wonderful doing whatever egrets do. I mean, it was just fabulous. I will say this is very interesting to me because half the group were novices and half the group were dedicated bird watchers. And I'm really glad that I was able to go on a tour with a dedicated bird watcher who knew that they could email what they've been seeing to some site, and other bird watchers were following along as we were going, and they knew a lot, and it was very exciting to be part of a group that just was really dedicated to this. Daniel's scope really helped. Now I was the shortest one in the group, so the scope would be very high for everybody else, and then he would have to come over and make it low for me, but there was somebody, I can't remember who, one of my people was helping me, up down, but so I think next year if people want to go, you should know it's fun, it's wonderful. I got to see more of outside Yuma than I thought. I already knew that there was a lot of water-based activities in and around Yuma, but I had no idea that all this wildlife and birds and so forth was also available. It was, I think we saw probably 4 or 5 different birds. I have photos of them in the slideshow I think that you guys are making up for me. And there was one particular beautiful one that Daniel pointed out. Nobody else saw. It was on a wire, like a phone wire. And Daniel, I can't remember the name of the bird. It was a little chubby little thing, but it was beautiful. These birds are just gorgeous. And this is just a really, really special activity. And you don't have to spend all day at it. You can spend half a day or a quarter of a day, and then go back to the Yuma Bar and Grill and have wonderful margaritas and Mexican food or whatever kind of food. I love Yvonne's Mexican food.
Yum.
I am a fan. I am a big fan, and bigger than big fan. And I don't know that just this whole thing, the birding with Daniel, who was so patient with us, patient but moving on, moving forward. We had a good pace. I didn't feel like we were ever, waiting too long on one thing or letting one person, control the group. It was very, very good. And I don't know, the gardens were wonderful. I mean, it all sort of made sense. I went and saw the gardens first. I began to understand the flora and the fauna, and then I went because one of the gardens is it the Moody Garden? Is one with the with the big wildlife refuge duck pond thing.
That's a conservation garden. The Yuma Conservation Garden is the one that really shows a lot of the native plants, and then the Moody Garden is the one that shows all the different kinds of plants you can grow.
Oh, the demonstration garden. Okay, yeah. So I love the conservation garden, especially because it was such a surprise with the wildlife. I really got into the wildlife. I think you probably can tell that. And then it was just really special to end this trip on this wonderful birding outing with Daniel. And you know, he just knows everything about everything. And then he starts mentioning sheep and beavers and things like that. And you think, okay, well, next time I come, you know, maybe I'll see those things, because those are all real important. Some of our people went and saw the bats, and they thought it was like the best thing ever. So I don't know, Yvonne, you did a really good job choosing your people. Like the guy who was supposed to take us on a canoe trip, but it was too windy. You know, he walked us along the banks. He was wonderful. I can't remember his name, but he was wonderful. And having Daniel, who was very patient but is so knowledgeable. So I was really, really happy when he agreed to come on the show.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my impressions.
There's a lot, you know, when it comes to the wildlife. And Daniel, you mentioned pronghorn. That's something we don't hear that much about in the Yuma area. I hear about bighorn sheep, but pronghorn, whereabouts are people able to see them, or do you have to hike out and
well, our pronghorn are further east than Yuma, and I come at everything from a perspective from YPG, because I'm spending most of my time out on our ranges, and we're doing a lot of work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Arizona Game and Fish with recovery for the endangered Sonoran pronghorn. And so probably the best place for folks to see pronghorn would be along Highway 95 heading up towards Quartzsite. There's a few near Highway 95. Then also out towards Ajo, Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. Some of those areas have some pronghorn. So we're hoping that as the recovery efforts continue, that we'll have more pronghorn closer to Yuma. But you know, we'll see how the recovery effort goes.
Oh, it's exciting,
nice.
Because they're really neat. We wanted to see them
are.
out by Organ Pipe, but we weren't able to get out there at that time. But yeah, it's neat. And COFA, that's the one thing about Yuma, is you've got so many national wildlife refuges around you. You've got Imperial, you've got COFA, Cibola, all these different nature areas that people can go to. I mean, you could spend, Yvonne, you've got people that come out almost every month just to go to a different hike, you know, or a different.
Yeah, I have birders all the time staying in a hotel.
It's year round. It is absolutely year round.
It is a year round tourism. Yes, it is.
Right before we left, we were in the wetlands and we saw pelicans, which was really cool.
They were huge.
Big white pelicans.
The biggest pelicans I've seen ever.
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to the California brown pelican, and they're good size, but these, I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, we used to see them a lot whenever John and I'd go out near Gate. We'd see them along the canals, and I used to tease him about them because I did not know they came out here.
Yeah.
I mean, it just floored me, and they're huge. They're so big.
It's just amazing. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. You wonder how they get off the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're when they're flying, they fly. You know, at first you think they're going to be ducks or geese because they fly in a V formation. Yeah. But and then you realize how big they are. It's like, well, what? Like they're dinosaurs.
Flying dinosaurs, exactly. Daniel, did they come? Go ahead.
What's really fun is when you're out in the middle of the desert and you don't really have any context for how close the water is to you, and you look up in the air and you've been like off road for hours and hiking for miles, and there's no water in sight, and you look up and here's a pelican.
It's like, what? Funny. And seagulls. That's the other thing. The seagulls.
Seagulls.
Yeah. You know, you go, what? What's a seagull doing in the desert? But the pelicans, I do have a question about that. We noticed that some of them have a bump on their nose and some or on their beak or bill, whichever it is. But some have like a bump and some don't. Is that a male-female thing?
Yes, and the males will get that notch during breeding season. They'll have that notch on their bill, and I think that notch will eventually shed off, and then it'll regrow. But I could be wrong on that.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it's associated with males.
Yeah, and I think that during breeding season, it changes to kind of a reddish color. Then it fades. You know how men get. They have to show off a little.
There you are.
Welcome to the show, Daniel.
I have a question for Daniel. Daniel, I understand that the Colorado River this year is going to run high, maybe 110% of capacity.
Wow.
Is that true? Have you heard that, or did I get misinformation?
I have not heard anything on what the flows would be, but that's great news. That's really good news.
Yeah, because I kept hearing from Mr. Canoe Guy and yourself, how important how important the Colorado River is to Yuma and, of course, Arizona and everybody else. But, and it's sort of dwindling in a way. And so it would be really nice if we had one of those Mother Nature experiences where we just get more than we ever expected, and maybe it would come back up to semi-normal. I don't know if that could happen or that takes years to do that.
Well, and there's a lot of demand for the water now, so it's the natural system is somewhat different than it used to be. Now I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years ago they had an opportunity to do a surge flow on the river, and there was an excess of water in some of our reservoirs that was my understanding. It was water that was allocated for Mexico, but Mexico wasn't able to take the water because of some damage to their infrastructure from the earthquake we had in 2010. So there was all this extra water, and the agencies all come up with a plan to release all that water at once, to surge that water through all these wetlands and recharge some of the wetlands and everything in Mexico, as well as helping our wetlands out here. And they actually kind of mimicked a spring flood event, and it had some really, really good benefits for like marsh bird populations and things like that.
Cool.
So it'd be terrific if we could have that, again and more often. But got to have water for that.
I think the Colorado got a really good snowfall this year, and really, really big snowfalls and frequent. And we've done we were up there last year in June and July, and a little bit in September. And we went to the headwaters of the Colorado River, which was really cool to go from the top to the bottom and be familiar with it. And the headwaters are so tiny compared, and it was crazy because we literally through Rocky Mountain National Park, we were driving the Trail Ridge Road, which is the highest paved road in the country. And it's crazy. And you're up there and there's like walls of snow on either side of you as you're driving, and it's freaky, but very cool. But when we started getting down there to the bottom where we got to the headwaters, of course we had to go there and had our little champagne Portofino toast, and we toasted Yvonne and John because we were at the headwaters, and we're like, okay, we're at the top, but it's so thin. It's like this little winding stream. It doesn't even look like a river. And it's amazing to me like how it opens up as it, flows down, down to Yuma and into the Sea of Cortez. It's amazing how a river will change to this little baby headwater. It's crazy. But
it grows up.
Yeah, then it grows up.
I don't know if I've ever been to a headwater. That really sounds interesting.
It is.
Ooh, I might have to do that. Ooh, yeah. I like
that. You can do that because you could follow it from there. We were going to try and do that. We managed to follow the Arkansas River from the headwaters, which is different. So this headwaters from Colorado is gushing. It's one of the top whitewater rafting in the world. And then we got it to Little Rock, Arkansas, where Little Rock's right on the Arkansas River, and it's this big, wide, calm piece of water. It's like, what happened? So it's interesting with Yuma. If you guys get that extra water this year, I mean, Yvonne, the tubers, because doesn't the river tubing start in like April, Yvonne, for everyone to come out? Yeah. They're going to have a blast.
Yeah, it'll be about the 1st of April sometime.
Oh, cool. And that's the thing, when you stay at the hotel and you hear all the river tubing people go, they leave early in the morning, nice and quiet. They come back and they're all partying and singing.
They're rowdy.
They have a good time when they come back. They've been floating all day. So there's
cool. Well, my favorite is my family and I, we like to wait till it gets really hot like in the late July, 115, 118 degrees, and then we go at 7 p.m. at night.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
I think that was
Then we'll float in the dark, and we'll carry like the little chem lights, and we have a little waterproof lantern that will float with us, and we'll float down, and the taco carts are open until 1 a.m.
See, that's
so
cool.
We'll float down, and then after we get out of the river, we'll go over to the taco carts on Pacific, and just have a wonderful night of it.
Oh,
Well,
I
that
love
sounds
this.
like fun.
Okay, so do you see wildlife and bird life at night when you float down? Because you can see the stars and stuff, right, when you do that?
Yeah, sometimes when we do it a little earlier in the season, I see a few bullfrogs, but and of course you see a few little fish and stuff floating in the riffle areas and stuff. But we're usually too noisy when we're floating to really see a whole lot. but when we're when we go on some of our kayaking trips, we go a little further north on the river up around Picacho State Park, and there we see a lot of beaver and a lot of muskrat and things like that when we're out
muskrat.
on the water.
I want to see a muskrat.
Stargazing, wouldn't it be good during the night like that? Have stargazing?
Oh yeah, and particularly when you get further up the river, get away from the city lights and everything, where you can kind of see it. And 4th of July, it's nice to kind of float through, and you can sometimes see the fireworks off of the Paradise Casino and kind of see them above the reeds.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
You keep talking about Picacho State Park, or State Recreation Area. It's one of my favorite places to go in Yuma. I mean, it's like a whole different planet. And, last year we went through like Petrified Forest and a lot of these geological wonders, that northern Arizona, like, wow, But Yuma has this right in the backyard. I mean, if you live in San Diego, Phoenix, Tucson, you're traveling through on the interstate across country, you've got to go to Picacho State Recreation Area. It is one of those unbelievable, jaw-dropping experiences when you drive in at sunrise, and it feels like you're on the moon going in there. We saw some burrow and all kinds of birds, and all of a sudden some people go there by boat. So Diva Linda, it's your style on that. People just float down the river.
There we go.
But
I like it.
That is one of the Daniel, that is a geological wonder. I think it should be like in a national wildlife refuge or national park status. Actually,
it is a really awesome place, and the birds up there are just amazing. We get a lot of bald eagles up there. There's actually peregrine falcon that are breeding there, and just right there along the river, it's got all this wonderful habitat, and the history up there, and that's similar to the history of the rest of the Yuma area. So much rich mining history in the area, and things that the state parks have worked to try to preserve and educate the public about. And the thing I'm always most amazed about when I go and see some of these historic sites, the historic town of Picacho was thousands of people.
It's amazing.
I want to say what their number on their sign was, something like 5,000 people live there. And you don't think about that when you look out in the desert and you see these little abandoned mining towns or mining villages and stuff. People moved across the landscape different in history, and the river was a big part of that. Also, the Butterfield Trail and some of the people following the Gila River, Butterfield Overland Mail, all that kind of stuff. Those followed water features and places where livestock could safely travel.
That's the Anza expedition, Juan Bautista de Anza expedition. I'm so into that, and it's interesting how they came through, and it's where the confluence of the Gila and the Colorado River meet. There seems to be that was like a big deal. That portion of where the rivers met, that where people crossed, where people, I don't know, where they camped. So there's like a lot of historic campsites along the river, along the lower Colorado River, and then going up to the Gila River, it seems like. It's interesting.
Historically, all these river systems, the environment was much different back in those days, and nowadays, we've taken so much of the groundwater and all the different uses of the rivers over the years, and we've tamed them so they don't get the flooding like they used to. But historic accounts of the Gila River as well as the Colorado River, you had these massive deltas where it was cottonwood and willow forest, and that's what a lot of the fuel for the steamboats. They were cutting trees along the river to fuel steamboats, and that was because they had these massive deltas that would provide enough wood that you could cut wood to power a steamboat.
Wow.
And it's different now, but if you take your mind back in time to the settlers coming out, there was tales of the old French and Spanish trappers going up and down the Gila River trapping beaver.
Mm.
You wouldn't think about going up and down. The Gila is not much more than a ditch now,
Right.
but it was a different ecosystem back in that time.
It's fascinating. The petroglyphs, is it the Painted Rock petroglyph site? It's not far from Yuma. You just go. It's between. In fact, Diva Linda, your house is right near there. It's a fascinating place, and it's like the crossroads, and just like Yuma, it's all connected with the Butterfield Overland Stage Route, the Juan Bautista, the Anza expedition. And then also there's a sign there about the Mormon Battalion going across. Let's talk about them too. But I think it was Jean Baptiste that was there. Wasn't he one of the French trappers that went through? I think it was Jean Baptiste.
Yeah, and I think he was Sacagawea's son.
Oh,
Jean
no
Baptiste.
way.
Gosh, I can't remember his full name. There's a lot of Jean Baptistes in history.
Yeah,
but yeah, he was actually Sacagawea's son.
No way, dude.
Who knew that?
Dude, Linda, Linda, you need to go there.
Jean Baptiste Rabijah, it started with an A, I believe.
Charbonneau or something. Yeah, I get confused.
Charbonneau, yeah.
Yeah, Charbonneau, because we just came back from Natchitoches, Louisiana, and there's a Jean Baptiste Denis. Oh, no way.
That was the guy who started the first settlement there, Denis.
I'm going to get them all twirled around here.
Yeah, he was the first to settle there, and that was the first settlement in Louisiana.
Okay. They get around, but you were talking about the cottonwood trees and the river boats. One thing also, if you go to Yuma Landing Bar and Grill, you have so many photos there, Yvonne, showing the history of the river, and just like you do in the museum, you have some of those photos of those river boats.
Yes, I do. Yeah, several of them.
It's
awesome.
It's just amazing to think of those old paddle boats coming through when you're standing on the banks, just down from the hotel, at the wetlands, and you just stand there and you're like, wow, there were these big, massive boat ship things going down. It's like, how did that happen? But it's changed course over the years, and so it's really fascinating how it all comes together, this history, the wildlife, the nature. Before we go, Diva Linda, one of the things you experienced to me, which I really hoped we could get to, is you went to the Cocopa event at the Cocopa Museum, and you went to a fry bread tasting. So you got to taste fry bread and make it, right?
Yeah, when I lived in Utah for a while, a short time actually, fry bread was really big there in the malls of all places, and it tasted really was wonderful. I loved it. So when I saw that this was part of the tour, I thought, oh, good, now I'm going to get to see how it's made and stuff. And I got much more than I thought. I mean, the trip to Cocoa Palm Museum is something everybody should go see, just even for the drive itself, because you get to go on a lot of Indian land, and you get to see the diverse vegetation and all the crops and all that. And it's just really so from the Coronado Hotel, it's about 30 minutes. It's a beautiful drive. It's an easy drive. And so when you go in there, you get to go, for us anyway, we had about a 45-minute tour of the museum, which is really really well done, and the tour is well done, and it's very small, but it packs a lot into it, and I think it really sort of gives you meaning and understanding to the native Yuma culture, and I enjoyed that a lot. And then the second part of the tour was going out and making and eating fry bread, and you can see pictures of that in my video. That was fun. So we had all ages doing it. And one of the Indian ladies was showing us how to do it, and then we all made our own fry bread, and then they fried it in a kind of a steel can, which was interesting. And then we had something called screw bean mesquite tea. I thought it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. Didn't know what to expect, but I thought it would be. It was earthy, which one would expect, but it was very, very good. Really, really enjoyed it. And then probably the most stunning part, the most soulful part of that trip to the museum was the Kokopah dancers. There were moms and daughters. They did a couple native dances for us. They were twirling and to a rhythmic beat, and it was just really. You sort of look at them and you think, now how does he learn those steps? They're just so beautifully done. They dip and they twirl and they whirl, and it's in the little ones to the big ones to the middle ones. So if anybody gets a chance to go see the Kokopah Museum, they should. Once again, very, very easy to get to from Yvonne's place, and I think if you just call ahead, you can make sure that you get on a tour and see what sort of activities they're having that day. They have lots of little activities there, not just the fry bread tasting, which I think was probably special for my group that I was with, because they were all writers. But I don't know. I think it's just one more piece to the puzzle that makes Yuma such a great destination. It's just really spoke to my soul. Really enjoyed it. And Yvonne, good choice. Good. That was a very interesting piece to add to the selection of what we could choose from. Really smart. I love my gardens.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You really worked hard on this. I mean, it wasn't just this is a very multifaceted event. It had layers of everything.
Well, that's the reason why we change it kind of from the plain bird festival to the bird nature and history festival, because they all intertwine. Everything intertwines, and that way it makes it interesting for everyone.
It does. And I think there's just so much to it. And I encourage everyone to go to the website, yumabirdnaturehistoryfestival.com. You can see the itinerary from this year, just to get a sampling of what's to come for next year. In January, again, that's going to be the weekend of January 15th, 2021. And once the registration goes up, you're going to want to register as soon as you can, because a lot of these activities are limited in numbers, because there's all this transportation that goes out, and so you can't have 100 people at one event, but you never know, depending. So check it out again, yumabirdnaturehistoryfestival.com. Yvonne, I know you're still doing museum tours, right? People just come and make an appointment at the hotel, so you can take them.
Yes, I am.
Through the museum. So definitely, when you go to Yuma, check out coronadomotorhotel.com. Recently featured in Arizona Highways as well. So congratulations on that. Beautiful feature. Beautiful feature in there. So also, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some extra knowledge on the birds and the history as well. I didn't know we were going to get a history lesson from you too. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us again, everyone. You can keep up with Diva Linda at allingoodtaste.info. That's the perfect diva name. So to keep up with her adventures there. And the article is up on blendradioandtv.com in our nature department. You can also see it in the spring-summer issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. I want to thank you all for joining us. We're going to close with some music. This song is called Ocotillo. And we want to play that since it's an Arizona song. It's about an Arizona plant. And it looks like, see, Daniel, we were under the sea once before, right? When you look at an ocotillo, don't you think it's sea kelp? It looks like kelp.
Yeah.
floating.
It does have that look.
Yeah, I mean, spring and fall, it's in
Coral.
bloom. It's beautiful. So the ocotillo plant, you're going to see that all through Yuma area. And this is from the album Perfume of Creosote, Desert Exotica Part 1. And it's by Michael and Spider. So here it is, ocotillo. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.